Hello, my name is Greg Madison. Welcome back to The Living Process. This time, my guest is John Amodeo. He's returning for the second time. And John has come back to talk a little bit about his new book. The book is called The Power of Gentle Presence: Insights for Inner Peace and Deeper Relationships. Um, The book is made up of some of his articles updated and revised from Psychology Today. And so it spans quite a few different topics, but topics that I think have been a part of John's work for many years. Talking a lot about the power of presence, the importance of emotional safety, working with shame, the inner critic, developing deeper relationships, having the courage to express yourself. John's well known in the focusing world, and you'll certainly hear a lot of the focusing kind of woven into these other topics. But it's interesting to see focusing applied so directly to real life situations and specific issues that we have just going through our lives. So I really enjoyed speaking with John. He kindly got up very early in the morning to talk to me. And yeah, it was very nice to hear again about a book being published that includes all of these different approaches and the mix with Buddhism that has also been a part of John's work for years. And we touch a little bit on a topic that I haven't heard him talk about before, which is bringing some of his insights into understanding the political domain and how we can see in some of the politics around the world different aspects of shame, self-criticism, reactivity. And I thought that was a very interesting addition. So hopefully you'll be interested in the book, and I'll make sure that there's a link to it so that you'll be able to find it. Okay, here's John Amodeo and The Living Process. Welcome back, John.
Thanks so much, Greg. Wonderful to be here with you again.
Yeah, nice to have you back in The Living Process. And today we're going to talk, at least primarily, about your new book. It's still quite new, isn't it?
Yes, up for a few months.
Okay, it's only been out a few months. And it's called The Power of Gentle Presence: Insights for Inner Peace and Deeper Relationships.
Indeed.
Yeah. When I was looking through the book, it struck me that it really covers a lot of different topics, but a lot of the topics seem immediately usable. They seem to be very related to sort of daily life and the kinds of difficulties that we encounter just by living.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe you want to start and just say a bit about why you wrote the book and where it came from.
Well, I'd like to bring a lot of practicality into the situation. I was born in Brooklyn, so I'm a New Yorker by birth and live in California now, as you know, but
Mhm.
I like to keep things very grounded and practical. So I find a lot in the spiritual movement, there's not a lot of practicality, a lot of maybe a little toxic positivity, maybe a little too positive for me sometimes.
Mhm.
It is like affirmations, just really think positively. And there's something to that, but there needs to be groundedness too, a combination for the shadow part of our psyche, or our hurts or fears. You really make room for our humanity. So I try to bring that into all of my books, all of my writing, including this one. And they're actually collections very much revised of Psychology Today articles. I've
Okay.
been writing for them for about 13 years, over 170 articles now. So I'm making them into 3 books, and this is the first. And but I spent a year revising them, so I really feel good about them, and they're very easy to read, about 3-minute reads, most of them for each chapter.
Hmm. Hmm. The one of the things I wanted to ask about is when you talk about boundaries, um, it's always an interesting question for me is boundaries can sometimes get interpreted as um, almost barriers to other people to sort of like keep people out sort of thing. I'm wondering what your thoughts on that would be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I write about that. It's boundaries aren't supposed to be walls.
Yeah.
Boundaries or have there's a fluidity to it. We can monitor how close we want people to be, just
Hmm.
keep checking in with our inner felt sense. Do I feel safe when I share, when I'm opening my heart, when I'm being tender and vulnerable with somebody? Does it feel safe? And we check that out. And if it does, then we can share a little bit more, open a little bit more. And this is how we create a climate for intimacy, for connection. So
Hmm.
boundaries are intended to keep away things that are really hurtful and toxic to us. Although, we can accommodate a little hurt, that's part of being human too. We don't want to armor ourselves, have all this body armoring, keep our heart enclosed, encased, and just really stay separate from people. That's not a great way to live our life. We want to be happy and joyful. Part of being joyful is opening to life. So we need to be have boundaries so we can discern who we want to have as our friends, who we want to have as an intimate partner, and how we want to relate in those relationships to really communicate when something is hurtful or we feel, criticized or shamed or blamed, and be able to communicate about that, not immediately shut down and close
Hmm.
off to that person, but, share when we feel hurt by somebody, for example.
I'm wondering, just as I hear you say that, I immediately think, I mean, that makes intuitive sense to me. Um, and yet I'm also thinking there's probably times when, even though it's uncomfortable, you want to consider something that's coming towards you that if you were simply to have a boundary that rejects it, you would be foregoing some kind of growth that could come from entertaining that perhaps there's some also a bit of truth to it.
Excellent point. Yeah. People can misinterpret boundaries as insulating ourselves from any discomfort, any
Exactly.
hurt, any pain.
Hmm.
And we just don't, we grow through pains oftentimes.
Hmm.
So, yes, exactly. So, if something comes up in a relationship, we don't immediately condense and blame the other person, like condense this person, fix them in some kind of a slot. Oh, they're just judgmental, they're narcissistic. And a
Hmm.
lot of people use that term these days, just dismissing it. Oh, but they're a narcissist. I'm not going to interact with that person anymore. Instead, just, well, what comes up in me when I'm feeling hurt or when I want to shut down? Can I just take a breath, be more spacious around what I'm noticing inside? Maybe my stomach's getting tight, chest constricted. And, what is that? Does that remind me of something from my past? Some
Hmm.
criticism, some shaming that it's an old pattern for me, an old narrative, and I just
Hmm.
always immediately shut that out? Or can I just, be friendly? And, as I talk about in the book, create a gentle presence toward that feeling.
Hmm.
Maybe it's trying to tell me something. Sometimes just being with that uncomfortable feeling allows it to shift. In
Yeah.
Buddhism,
Yeah.
everything's impermanent. Feelings come and go. It doesn't have to be such a big deal. So we
Hmm.
make room for that feeling, take a breath, be in our body with it. It tends to pass, or we inquire a little. Gee, be curious about it. What is that feeling? What is that tightness? What is that hurt that's coming up? Is it about this immediate situation, or is
Hmm.
it some old pattern that's getting activated? Old trauma, maybe, or old hurt that needs to be embraced. Maybe my inner child got kind of tweaked, got hurt, and I can be with that in a gentle way and when it shifts, I'm open again. I'm spacious again for the relationship, for the connection.
Yeah, that makes me think a little bit of it seems like in today's world that quite often all it takes is someone saying they're uncomfortable, and then everyone has to scurry around to make sure they're not uncomfortable. And that really limits kind of the growth potential of that moment. And I'm also thinking, I don't know what you would say to this, that maybe sometimes in the focusing world, we can sort of make a claim. It's like, well, my felt sense says, my felt sense is that's wrong or something, which doesn't sound to me like the same as what you're suggesting. I would say that what you're suggesting is the feeling, the discomfort potentially, is the beginning of a discovery, beginning of a journey, maybe. It's not a fact that then you just communicate as a conclusion.
Exactly. And then shut down and shut that person out of your life, out of your heart.
Yeah. So,
There's a middle path. I mean, sometimes, people have been in abusive relationships, and some of those an alcoholic or, and there needs to be a firm boundary. Like that's not okay. That's not acceptable. And my discomfort is telling me I need to set a limit with that person or maybe leave them in some situations. But by and large, most people aren't in that kind of situation. It's more the
mhm,
discomfort. There's an aversion to any discomfort. In Buddhism, clinging and aversion are two causes of suffering and anguish in our life. So to be open, what is that aversion about? Is it really about how they're treating me? Maybe. Or is it about something that's coming up in me that I just have aversion to within myself? I don't want to feel hurt or sad or
mhm,
shame. I immediately shut it out, dissociate from it, leave
mhm,
my body because it's too painful.
mhm,
It's what sometimes it's called an exile feeling. We just don't want to get close to it. It's too painful, but it drives us in some way until we finally turn toward it in a gentle way and be with it and
mhm.
give it some space. And then it can finally shift and open up and deliver us to a much more equanimous, connected place, both within ourselves and with the other person.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that you mentioned the middle way. It again, it kind of feels like it immediately strikes me as there's wisdom in that, and also that it seems to be less and less kind of referred to as a way forward, that there can be something that isn't one extreme or the other, or yes or no, all the different binaries and polarities. But you've also mentioned shame a couple of times. And I know that you've done a lot of work on that, and we spoke about it before. But I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about what you think the significance of shame is. Like, where does it come from? Why is it so, on the one hand, paralyzing, and on the other hand, so kind of present underneath, I think, in many of our
Uh,
lives?
Well, I think we grow up, we're born, we want to feel accepted and cared about. We want to belong. We want to feel a connection. And shame, I grew up with a lot of criticism from my father, for example. And
Mhm,
it just, it really kind of shut me down. I had to do a lot of work to realize, hey, maybe I am a good person. I'm okay as I am.
mhm,
And it just immediately, we kind of shrivel up inside. I mean, John Paul Sartre said, shame is that immediate shudder that runs through me from head to toe.
mhm,
It makes us just contract and want to protect ourselves. It sounds like it's like a form of trauma, shame. We
mhm,
go into fight flight mode. Sometimes we don't want to feel it, so we transfer the shame to the other person, attacking them, or we direct it toward ourselves. Oh, I am a bad person. I don't have much worth and value. I'm going to just retreat inside and not show myself to anybody. Why take the risk of getting criticized and shamed again? It's so painful. It
mhm.
means immensely painful feeling. So we have to realize we're okay as we are. We're beautiful as we are, and we need to not allow other people to define us.
Mhm.
when we're in that state of shame, we're buying into how others might be perceiving us instead of really holding ourselves with dignity and respect and realizing, as the Buddha said, that we deserve happiness just as much as anyone else in the world.
Yeah.
So treating ourselves in a friendly, gentle, kind way is really an antidote to the shame and an essential part of the healing process.
It surprises me as you say that. I find myself thinking, why isn't that kind of that degree of self-acceptance more the default position rather than something you have to work to develop?
Sadly, I think because many of us didn't grow up with that kind of mirroring that we need from caregivers,
Hmm.
to be seen in a beautiful way, that we're a beautiful being, that our feelings are valid, have inquiries into how we're feeling, have people around us who are curious about our experience and ask us about it. So we can then normalize how we feel. Like, okay, it's okay to feel the full range of feelings, to be afraid sometimes, or sad, or hurt, or embarrassed, or even angry. And we've discovered, okay, it's okay for me to be me. It's okay to express my needs and wants instead of being told, I should keep that private or don't speak unless I'm spoken to, or there's something wrong with me for having my needs or wants. And so, without that mirroring, I mean, that's where therapy is really helpful and healthy relationships, to be in a relationship where we're seen and recognized and welcomed and we can finally relax. Oh, maybe I am okay as I am. What I experience is okay because I'm getting that positive mirroring. So, finding places where we feel safe to be ourselves is tremendously healing. It's so important.
So how do you, I mean, I was going to ask how you work with shame, and I think you're already talking about it um, a little bit. I am curious, what else would you say about what you have found useful ways of working with shame, either for yourself or with clients?
Well, I try to help clients identify it. Like often clients don't use that word shame.
Hmm.
They might say I feel disrespected by that other person.
Yeah.
Use words that have ed at the end of them, uh, like disrespected, and which is in the direction of a feeling, so not to dismiss it. But then I said, well, I wonder if that's a sense of shame, that you're feeling. And then I educate them about what shame is, that feeling bad about ourselves, like we're flawed, we're defective, there's something wrong with us, we're less than others.
Hmm.
And to make room for that, to recognize that that's a core emotion, that's a universal emotion that everybody feels.
Hmm.
And it's very natural and it's important to recognize it. And because if we don't recognize it, we're run by it. We run away from it. We protect ourselves from having to feel that by not revealing ourselves, not showing ourselves, because we're so afraid of being shamed again, being criticized, being judged, being attacked. So when people catch on to it, it's often a really pivotal moment of
Hmm.
growth for them. Like, oh, I have shame, but I'm not the shame.
Hmm. So how
And
would you, I can understand that step of helping them identify that that's actually what's there. And then how would you support the healing of that?
by encouraging people, and I do it within myself too when I can remember to
Mhm.
recognize it.
Mhm. Yeah.
That okay, there's shame there. Yeah, is that
Yeah.
okay to be with that? Can I turn toward it instead of shutting down? And what does it feel like in my body when I notice that shame? Is my stomach tight, my chest constricted, the sense of contraction or the sense of bracing against something because it's so painful?
Hmm.
Can I take a breath? Just drop down into my body. Well, how does that shame feel? Is it okay just to be with it, to make space for it, and just see if anything more wants to come as you be with that? Maybe memories will come, or
Hmm.
maybe a recent incident where they felt shame, and we can explore that together and just kind of unpack it. Just really allow it to disentangle from it, to just allow it to unfold and be with it. So I bring it into an experiential dimension after I educate people about it. It's really important.
Hmm.
And
So it's really just exploring the feeling and what comes from the feeling, and that in itself heals the kind of the secrecy of it or something?
Yeah, and often where the feeling comes from, I mean, I don't
Mm.
delve into history too much, but it usually comes up spontaneously, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, my mother, my father, my siblings, the way they spoke to me just really shut me down and felt unsafe,
Mhm.
attacked, and criticized a lot. And I've developed a pattern or a narrative that people aren't safe. And I
Mhm.
have to keep protecting myself. And that's so sad and even tragic that we isolate ourselves so much because the shame is dominating us. We're merged with it, it runs us. It's so sad that it keeps us so constricted in our life. And it doesn't have to. I mean, that's the good news. We can work with it. And
And another thing that you talk a lot about is the self-criticism. And I'm thinking that that maybe in some way is the other side of this shame, that it's actually that we start taking over the shaming of ourselves long after the initial, external critic. Is that the way that you would see it?
yeah, we do quite a good job of internalizing the criticisms we get from others,
Yeah.
and now we criticize ourselves as a misguided way to try to protect us. Oh, that was bad. That was dumb. Why did I do that? Well, you're being stupid again, Well, why did you get involved with that person? Didn't you learn your lesson? You keep repeating this pattern. What's wrong with you? So it's very human, but it's not very helpful. So yeah, the inner critic, I see that's like the cognitive part, the part that talks to us. The shame is more the
Yeah,
felt part. So
exactly.
there are two aspects that are really helpful to look at. Some people are dominated by more the thought process. They immediately go into, oh, what's wrong with me? Why did I do that again? Or, you're defective, you're a jerk, And then other people just immediately, this is more of a body sense of, oh, just contracting and shutting down.
Hmm.
I mean, it's important too to say, Greg, that not all shame is bad. It's and the good news is you're never going to eliminate shame. That's the good news. So don't even try because I mean the good news in that is we need to work with it and it's going to keep coming up. It's like the Hydra, the many-headed monster. As soon as you lop off one head, two more heads appear. So we need to have humility and respect for how tenacious and powerful the shame is. But the good news, along with that, is we can work with it. We can be with it. We can turn toward it. We can learn to be friendly toward it. And not all shame is bad. Sometimes it's trying to guide us. There's healthy shame. Some people call it guilt. I prefer to call it healthy shame, where we can, which is, oh, I made a mistake. It doesn't mean I am a mistake. I made a mistake. Okay, we all do that. It's part of human, part of being human. I talk in the book about how, Benjamin Franklin's famous for saying, there's two certainties in life, death and taxes. And I say, Ben, uh, why so optimistic? You left out something, making mistakes. That's inevitable in life. And we need to make room for that. It's just part of being human. And doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. And, a little shame can say, oh, gee, maybe I said something that was hurtful to that person. It gets our attention. And
Hmm.
goes, oh, gee, well, I didn't mean to say that. I was just so impulsive. I guess I was uncomfortable and I was wanting to hurt them in some way because I felt hurt by them or some. We can inquire into it. The shame can be like a doorway or a
Hmm.
trailhead into what's really going on inside of me. Gets our we don't need a whole lot of it, just a tiny bit, homeopathic dose of shame can get our attention to really look inside and say, oh, and be curious about it without being paralyzed by it.
When you say that, it sounds almost like the call of one's conscience in some way.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I like that word, Christian kind of a word often used. I grew up Catholic.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an intrinsic conscience, like something in us like that guides us toward goodness, toward
Yeah,
beauty, toward connection, toward love.
yeah.
That's what we all are really angling for. We want to feel accepted. We want to feel loved. We want to feel connected.
Hmm.
And our feelings can be guides to how to create more love in our life. Or when we get off track and we move away from the path of love.
Another thing that you mention in the book, and you were just kind of sort of gesturing towards it a moment ago, is this idea that there's always more. And the kind of, I don't know if it's right to say, slight obsession with personal growth that can happen. And just wondering, because you mentioned something about that in the book. What is your view on that?
Yeah, that chapter's called, let's see if I can remember what I said. It's stop trying so hard to grow because it's going to take you away from yourself. Stop working on yourself to grow in a deeper way. I think that's the title of that chapter. People, okay, I'm really working on myself. I'm working on, and people what often people do is they start digging at themselves
Yeah.
and overly analyzing themselves, and they're in their head a lot, trying to figure out what they're doing wrong, or trying too hard to be good,
Hmm.
which is cultivating an image of themselves as being a good person instead of really being good, which
Yeah.
is a real trap on the spiritual or humanistic path. So yeah, I mean, what does growth really mean? It means just allowing yourself to experience what you're experiencing, really making friends with that, cultivating a gentle presence toward the full range of your experience,
Hmm.
welcoming it, opening to, and there's a parallel path when we open deeply to ourselves, just as we are. Carl Rogers, as you know, famously said, the curious paradox is when I can accept myself just as I am, then I can change. I think it bears repeating and remembering. That's a beautiful phrase. So just really accepting ourselves as we are, and it doesn't mean accepting the version of ourselves that's a reaction to parts of ourselves that we don't want to face. That's a subtle, nuanced point. But that are really true, deeper self, our true feelings, what we really legitimately want, and just really making room for all of that. And the more we can bring acceptance to ourselves, the more we have tolerance for other people and their flaws and foibles also. They're not perfect, just like we're not perfect.
Hmm.
And we accept people as they are. They probably have really wonderful qualities as we do, maybe qualities that aren't so good. Everyone has their limitations. But the more we can accept ours, the more we can accept others just as they are. And when people feel accepted and welcome, they tend to feel safer emotionally, which is a key to intimacy, and they tend to open up more, and we can cultivate a connection.
It's interesting as you describe that, the word that you use quite a bit is acceptance. And it makes me wonder if it gives a slightly different connotation if the goal is personal acceptance rather than personal growth. Growth kind of feels like you must move forward. There's you have to keep growing, and it has this kind of optimization sort of the day will come when I am fully grown.
It's kind of a Western ambitious kind of a path, right? So I love what you're saying. Yeah, I think personal acceptance would be a great reframe of what the path really is about, not personal growth, because personal growth can be more of a concept.
Yeah.
It's very conceptual, sort of in the head, some
Hmm.
image, some concept of what we mean. What is personal? What is growth?
Hmm.
It really is the full acceptance of ourselves as we are. Self-connection could be another term for it, really connecting with ourselves as we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Self-intimacy could be another term, the path of self-intimacy, really being friendly and gentle and open to myself
Hmm.
as I am. And that's a foundation. I mean, it doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean it's being self-centered. I mean, just being connected in a way where we're then simultaneously connected to what's outside of ourselves. So the
Hmm.
intimacy with ourself is a foundation for intimacy with our world. And as Dogen, the famous Zen teacher, said, to be enlightened is to be intimate with all things.
Yeah.
I see Buddhism as a path toward intimacy, not a path of detachment, as some people define it, path of openness to life.
That's interesting. It would be my experience as well, but I'm just curious how you understand that increasing intimacy with oneself actually brings us into more intimate connection with others and with the world. Because some people would see that as almost like two different places. How do you see that? How does going in end up kind of turning out?
Well, but our response to it, my first response to it is, I don't know how that happens. It's a mystery. So I don't want to try too hard to figure it out. But try it. If the listeners are out there and curious about, try it and see if it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's something about opening to life as it is, opening to the life within connects
Hmm.
us to the life without.
Well, I guess I'm thinking it's partly about what we mean by what are we going into? I guess from a focusing perspective, the kind of body we're going into is a body that already is interacting with the world. So we find the world. We don't find an enclosed self.
Right, if we're really authentically going within, we discover the world.
Hmm.
So maybe it's a paradox, but
But there's one other thing I want to ask about that. And then I want to ask about one other chapter. And then I'm curious what feels most important to you in the book. But the thing I want to ask about first is just in the focusing world, and I don't think it's just in the focusing world, but it may not be in every kind of tradition. There can be this emphasis either on going inside, going into yourself, and coming to know yourself, kind of being with the felt sense, getting images, words, or something that seem to really help you understand what you're really experiencing, and then the shift comes. And then there's also this emphasis on relating and relationship. And like Genlin in his philosophy talks about interaction first, as though first we're relating and then we are a self. And I'm just curious about that kind of the different emphasis, because for a long time it seemed like relationship was not being attended to. It was all about individual growth. And now the tables have turned and everyone is talking about relating and relationship. And I'm just wondering kind of how do you put the two together? Because some of the things you've been saying, which make sense to me, sound almost as though there's a degree of personal work that enables you to relate. So that personal work can't be completely dismissed. It can't all be relationship work. I'm wondering what you would say about that.
well, the personal work, if we're going to use that word work, work
Yeah.
again, or that path toward personal acceptance
Yeah.
is making room for feelings that we might have detached from, isolated from. I think it's a doorway, important one to connect with ourself as we are.
Hmm.
And yeah, I like the idea, Jenlin's idea of interaction first, that we're interactional beings.
Yeah.
And there's an openness to life, to connection to other people.
Hmm. Well, I can use an example because I know that you used to work quite a bit with couples as well as individuals.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in a couple,
Mhm.
you can work with the two individuals
Right,
and you can also sort of work with the relationship between them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to brag, but I've been on to the relationship thing for a long time now.
Hmm.
As you know, my first book, Being Intimate,
Yeah.
is bringing focusing into the realm of relationships. That book came out in 1986.
Yeah.
It's out of print, but people can still get it.
Mm.
But focusing creates a wonderful foundation for intimacy because we're intimate with ourselves. And then we have to first be mindful, to bring the mindfulness word in here, be mindful of what we're experiencing before we know what to share. Communication has to be based on awareness of what we're really experiencing inside.
Yeah.
Some people pride themselves on being good communicators because, they're authentic. I just tell it like it is, maybe they're angry or they're judging the other person. Well, I'm being honest and being authentic. I'm a good communicator. I'm communicating how much of an asshole you are. I'm telling you very directly. But authentic communication has to come from revealing, self-revealing communication, I call it, revealing what's really going on inside of you.
Hmm.
And that not only makes it safer for the other person to hear you, it really enables you to stay really connected to your own being. So you're
Hmm.
not going to fly off the handle and attack and blame. You're going to speak, I statements. You're going to speak from your own authentic experience. And focusing is a wonderful tool for knowing what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
It's a foundation for once you connect with what you're experiencing. I mean, often I say there's two parts of it. One is being self-awareness, being aware of what you're experiencing, and the other piece often is courage, like having the courage or the inner strength to take the risk, to share.
Hmm.
The risk means, well, this might go well, it might not go so well. It's a risk. But if we know how to stand behind ourselves and be present with our experience, and this is one of the most important things I talk about in the book, is as we cultivate a more gentle presence toward ourselves, that allows vulnerability to be sustainable. That allows openness to be sustainable, because then no matter what happens interactionally, we have a self to come back to.
Hmm. Yeah.
We're grounded. If it doesn't go well, it might sting a little bit. That's normal. It might hurt a little bit.
Hmm.
That's not the end of the world. We can feel good that we took the risk,
Hmm.
that we had the courage to share the hurt we were feeling, or the shame we felt in relation to somebody, or putting out a need or want that we had. If it doesn't go well, we can still feel good that we took the risk. And we
Yeah.
have a self to always come back to as a refuge, as a
Yeah.
grounded place.
Exactly. And I guess it's partly how you or how the person relates to themselves having taken the risk.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. There's taking the risk to share what's tender in us. And then the more important, the really important step after that is what we do next. Can
Exactly.
we share that? Can we stay connected, or do we dissociate? Oh, we're so afraid we're going to get judged. We
Hmm.
immediately that shudder inside of us, that shame, or we shut down and we change the subject, change the
Hmm.
topic, or we go to our computer room, something that's safer. We go on Facebook or something, which is fine. But there are times where we need to just turn toward the feeling, and we have the inner strength, the inner resources to be with what we're feeling.
Hmm. I like that emphasis. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing that I wanted to ask about, having looked through the range of different titles in the chapters, is the one where you're talking, I think it's right near the very end of the book, and you're talking more kind of socially, politically. And it made me, as I was reading it, it made me want to ask you the question of what do you think? And I realize a lot of the Western democracies are going through some kind of rupture or upheaval or something at the moment. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think is going on psychologically in America at the moment?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the book. I'm glad you put it up.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
like
really
that.
important to bring, the path of personal acceptance, as we could call it now, personal growth, to the social and political domain. The
Yeah.
foundation. I think, and I write about this a lot, in the book, that a lot of the dysfunction we're feeling, I think, is shame driven. A lot of the political leaders, they go into these these positions of power often as compensations for the shame they grew up with. And not just politicians, but a lot of people pursue positions of power, money, wealth, as a substitute gratification for the lack of love and intimacy in their life. It's a misguided way to people trying to belong or feel accepted. And, if I have these external things like wealth and power, then I feel good. I'm a real man.
Um,
It's like, some people call it toxic masculinity. That's kind of
yeah.
driving all of this country. I prefer to call it wounded masculinity. People who grow up with they feel compelled to cultivate this image of being quote unquote successful to please their fathers, please their parents.
Mhm.
And it operates subconsciously, of course, in people, but it doesn't bring real satisfaction and fulfillment. And these are the people that tend to control other people's lives. And
And
it's very sad.
how would you, I mean, I think that feels accurate to me in many ways. And I'm just wondering, how would you understand the fact that almost half of America can follow a leader like that who is so obviously wounded in some way?
Yeah, I think people are, easily manipulated. And I think there's many ways to, look at that. I think many people are angry about
Mhm.
something, that's something that they didn't get in their life, probably acceptance and love. And, there's some very skilled leaders that are very adept at reminding people of why they should be angry, that legitimize their anger and then direct it
Yeah.
toward their cause,
Hmm.
direct it toward immigrants or Black people or whatever.
Yeah.
And or it's where the system is. And so people get on that bandwagon and it becomes like a cult.
Hmm.
The cult leaders are very powerful, very persuasive, very confident sounding. And people don't realize that confidence doesn't necessarily mean people actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
Confidence is often very misguided.
Yeah.
And, and people who have confidence often don't have self-worth and self-esteem. We might think, oh, they have a lot of self-worth, self-esteem, but
Hmm.
um, confidence is different than true self-worth. People have self-worth. It's really grounded in their being. It's not based upon these false idols of money and wealth and
Hmm.
being articulate, being persuasive. That's a compensation often for feeling inadequate and insecure. So people need to, we need to educate people to be more discerning. And that's what
Yes.
I'm going to do when I write those chapters in the book. Like, how can we elect emotionally intelligent leaders? How can we discern who has the emotional intelligence to really
Yeah.
guide us in a way where they're concerned about us, not just concerned about themselves and their own power base?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then, vote in terms of our own self-interest.
Yeah.
Who's going to respond to my legitimate human needs and the needs of others around us,
Hmm.
by supporting healthcare, for example. It's this great source of pain for me. That's why I write about this. It's so much despair that I could be feeling if I didn't feel like I was doing something to
Yeah.
work towards some solution, to
Yeah.
be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So this is my way of dealing with my own despair and grief about what's happening, is try to do something, try to educate people about it.
Was that chapter one of the articles from Psychology Today?
Well, there's a couple of chapters about it in the book.
Okay.
So yeah, one of the chapters I submitted to Psychology Today, and it's the only chapter that they rejected. They didn't want to publish it. Too controversial.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's surprising.
Well, I can have empathy for it because they have a very loud group. They have a certain base of people who read us who are very loud about conservative, and it's too controversial to we,
Hmm. The reason I was asking is I was curious what the response was if it had been published, but I didn't even get that far.
no. And and I want I'm not trying to put them down either. I really can
Yeah.
understand their limitations. I mean, it's all over the place, in the media.
Hmm.
Jimmy Kimmel or whatever, people,
Yeah.
people do need to be a little careful these days. It's understandable. It's
Hmm.
legitimate, because if you go too far out in one direction, you might you might not be economically viable anymore.
Hmm.
You're not helping all the people who you can help. So,
It's if I you may not want to comment on this for exactly the same reason, but when you were talking a moment ago about the kinds of leaders that we currently are kind of um, struggling with, sort of almost like
yeah,
there's a new kind of politician where truth or consistency or well thought out detail, a lot of that kind of more mature leadership isn't all that we're getting. We're getting other things as well. And I'm wondering with Donald Trump, for example, he doesn't seem to have any shame.
right,
He may be, according to what you were saying a moment ago, he may be sort of deeply immersed in some kind of shame, but he doesn't seem to immediately kind of back off if he's made a mistake or something, quite the opposite. And I've heard one person say that he thought that was part of his appeal. It's almost like he gives you a ticket where you'd no longer have to feel shame at all.
right. It's
Like
an
that's what his,
invincibility,
yeah, that's what he's modeling.
invincibility,
Yeah,
unruffled, someone who's unruffled, right? And a lot of people flock to that. Oh, what a man! He's a real man,
yeah.
He says it like it is, and I trust him. And they have a misguided trust for someone who has no shame.
Well, how liberating.
Yeah, 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 right. And they can ride on the coattails of that and just really, you know, maintain that image of themselves. I'm someone who's shameless.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's we know people who don't have any shame, and there's a lot of people in the world like this. That's one of the symptoms of sociopathy.
Yeah.
Sociopaths have no shame. They don't, and they have no sensitivity to how they might be hurting other people. No empathy, lack of
Hmm.
empathy for others' suffering.
Hmm.
We're trying to create a more human path.
Yeah.
And and just to be clear, I mean, I love psychology today. They're doing a really good job of really educating people about important things. So
Hmm.
just put it clear that I'm really supportive of them, and I hope people do read Psychology Today because it's a great magazine, and I still have an online column with them, and people can
Hmm.
also access my articles there.
Hmm.
But yes, it's a really good point that being shameless is not a sign of mental health. It's just the opposite.
Yeah, having some degree of being able to experience shame and having some degree of being able to be self-critical appropriately of one's own actions.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
important. Yeah.
And those are the people we need to elect, people who have
Yeah.
humility, who are able to say, I made a mistake. I was
Yeah.
wrong about that.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was wrong. Those three comments are a sign of mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And
So in the book, what are some of the parts of the book that you feel most strongly about?
well, that part, the last section where I talk about shame and how it relates to politics and social
Hmm.
factors, but also the chapters on I have a chapter on the RAIN process, RAIN. You're familiar with that?
Tara Brach.
Michelle McDonald's
Oh.
developed it,
Oh.
meditation teacher, and it's popularized by Tara Brach and
Hmm.
Rick Hansen. Just real practical ways to notice our feelings, very focusing a line. Like the R is recognize what you're feeling,
Hmm.
and the A is be accepting toward what you're feeling, allowing, accepting of what you're noticing inside. And sometimes just those two steps really enable the feeling to pass, like in in core Buddhist teaching is the law of impermanence. Things change, things shift. And if we can accept what's there, then it tends to shift and change. These feelings come and go. So we can be with it, notice it, allow it, it tends to shift. But the I part is to inquire or investigate. Well, what is that feeling about? A little bit of self-inquiry, like, if we do feel shame or hurt or sad or angry, well, what is that anger about? Why am I so angry? Well, I guess it has to do with, it could be anything, but, that I'm protecting myself from feeling hurt and feeling vulnerable. It's a defense against me being vulnerable and sharing, noticing that I'm feeling hurt inside or sad about something. And that can allow something to shift. And then some of the end part is, the originator called it non-identification. Don't get attached to the results. And I like Tara Brach's framing of the end as more nurturing, having a sense of nurturing, more focusing aligns. And it's really giving, what do I need around all this? Just something that my inner child needs, or can I just be gentle with what I notice? Or can I feel good that I had the courage to really look at my feelings here and just have a sense of nurturing around what came up for me around the process.
Yeah.
So that's one of the chapters that I really like in the book.
Is there anything in the book that you think would surprise focusers or might be something quite like a not so recognizable or something from focusing practice?
I haven't thought about that. Something that might surprise focusers. Well, I think maybe a lot of focusers haven't considered how focusing is a pathway toward connection, toward intimacy with others.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's coming more online now. I think people are realizing more now how helpful focusing is for our relationships.
Yeah.
But there still may be people who use focusing in a way where they're kind of just so inward with it that they're not expressing or communicating what they're feeling to others. I mean, it's a great discovery to know what we're really experiencing. And, it's really helpful to bring that out in our relationships and connections with others.
Yeah, I think as focusers, it's not always very easy to bring focusing into our relationships or our everyday interactions.
Right. Right. But if there's a great opening, a great possibility to do that,
Yeah.
that's where the courage factor often comes in, like it's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just get comfortable with just, okay, I'm just staying in my inner self.
Mm-hmm.
And Buddhists do that too. They'll just kind of meditate and just stay inward, but they don't really apply it to their life, to their
Mm-hmm.
relationships. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a powerful way to really connect and have more joy in our life, because
Mm-hmm.
relationships are such a great source of joy and happiness and fulfillment that
Mm-hmm.
we often don't avail ourselves of.
Yeah, it can bring a real spontaneity into relating.
Yeah, and lightheartedness too sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
playfulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's be so serious, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like people.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to not like somebody. People have a lot of people, most people have likable things about them. And, just look in people's eyes and you can see their light and their beauty. And
Yeah.
with a part of them that's really longing for connection, even as much as they might try to hide it. And, if we're available for each other, it brings people out and they feel safe with us. And it can be very
Mm-hmm.
delightful. It's spontaneous delight and joy connecting with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's lovely.
That's why I love the focusing community, because people are just so open and willing to really be with themselves, and there's so much kindness in the community.
Yeah, and listening.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and you're great at that, by the way. I just love how you listen. You're very skilled with that. It really brings me out because I really feel heard by you,
Thank
and that
you.
helps me feel safe and connected, and it just kind of brings out the best of me. So I really appreciate you and what you offer. And
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's probably like you. I'm in a few different professional communities, and that's one thing that seems quite special about the focusing community is the quality of listening and sort of feeling that you land in someone else.
Yes, yeah. That's the intention, is to really listen to ourselves and really listen to others, because
Hmm.
we all need that mirroring. We all need to feel heard. We all have this longing to be heard and seen and accepted, and
Hmm.
to be heard, to be listened to. It's such a beautiful connecting thing.
Hmm. To feel real.
Yeah, yeah, to feel real with somebody and
Mm.
just really have that sense of, yeah. And it's so soothing and calming, and it awakens something in us when we're heard.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really does. Um, that's interesting actually, because it makes more of the self available to oneself if you're really heard by another.
It's awakening in relationship, which takes
Hmm.
Buddhism in a little bit of a different direction with the emphasis on personal awakening, but
Hmm.
it can also awaken in community. We need each
Hmm.
other. And in Buddhism too, one of the three refuge vows is taking refuge in the Sangha, in the community.
Hmm.
Often not emphasized enough, taking refuge, availing ourselves of the connections that are there, and
Yeah.
we awaken together.
Hmm. Exactly. And I'm feeling like this is kind of an answer to the question I was asking you earlier about kind of the individual and relationship, because it somehow, I'm not exactly clear how, but somehow it feels like an answer when you experience more of yourself when you're really listened to by another. There's something about that being related to that brings more of you into being.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautifully said. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we come more into being as we're heard.
yeah.
It's a beautiful path, and I just really love the focusing community for that. And I think it's coming even more into the Buddhist world, the importance of our relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know as much about Buddhism, but it seems like there's so much potential crossover. Maybe there's a lot of crossover between focusing and many different spiritual traditions. There's something about the focusing process itself that's conducive to that deeper um, awareness.
You'd love to see more spiritual communities adapt focusing and bring it into their practice, because it can really complement.
Yeah.
And I actually did my doctoral dissertation on that you mentioned.
Oh,
It's
did you?
the complementary effects of focusing and meditation,
Oh, okay.
how they help and support each other. Because often in meditation, feelings keep recurring, things maybe we don't want to look at. And the focusing helps us pause and bring attention to those feelings that might come up in meditation, so we
Hmm.
can get to the bottom of them, or just make friends with them, or allow them to come, allow them to release, see what they're about. So it's very powerful to integrate both of those paths.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds good to me. So before I know we're up to time, but I just wanted to ask what you feel most passionate about at the moment. Is there something else you're working on or something that has really captured your attention?
Lately, I'm working on, and I started doing Facebook Reels on this, is the importance of emotional safety.
Hmm.
But it takes more than love to make a relationship work. It also takes emotional safety. And the way we create emotional safety is by finding more safety within ourselves, to be gentle, to bring that gentle presence to the full range of our feelings and our experience, and so that we're able to share those feelings then, and courageously share what we're feeling with others, and be present with others, really listen, like you're saying. And that helps other people feel safe. And, it makes intimacy sustainable when we know we can come back and just really be with ourselves just as we are, and just love and accept ourselves as we are. So we're creating a climate for feeling safe within ourselves, and a climate where others feel safe with us, because we're not in our judging mind. We're in
Hmm.
ourself that's really open and present and listening and receptive. People feel safe and come toward us, and it creates a beautiful field between
Hmm.
us that's nourishing and enlivening and connecting, and
Hmm.
become more awake to who we are and awake to the field that exists between us. And it's a beautiful process. It's a practice. We can practice creating that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I really like that you say that love on its own really isn't enough without something like that supporting it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels good.
I think we got it.
It feels hopeful.
Yeah, yeah, hopeful. Yeah, I feel hopeful. I kind of keep hope. I think the trend line is toward people awakening. There's something in all of us that wants the truth, wants to see
Hmm.
what's true.
Hmm.
We go through some dark times sometimes before we get to it, but I think more and more people are waking up. And
Well, I think what you've just said, that just really rings true for me, that the kind of emotional safety is such an important bedrock for whatever else happens. I mean, we're living in very exciting times, you might say, but that emotional safety can make it possible to kind of ride the waves.
exactly, and the inquiries and how do we create emotional safety? So that's a lot of what my writing, all of my books, but the Gentle Presence book is about how do
Yeah.
we create emotional safety within ourselves and between us. It's
And apart from the book, are you teaching sort of these practices?
I'm not doing so much teaching right now.
Okay.
I'm kind of focusing on enjoying my life more and doing gardening and bike riding, taking walks and going to the gym and self-care kind of things.
Uh,
But I get invited to teach now and then. I've done a few, I'm doing other podcasts, which I
yeah.
really enjoy. And
Yeah. Good.
I did one with Surge recently,
Hmm.
so in the focusing world. And yeah, when opportunities arise, I mean, I'll be doing some speaking around the book signings and things like that. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Sounds great, Greg. Yeah, I really
Mhm.
appreciate you and our time together.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Have a good
Very
day.
well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.